Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, and in case you guys didn't read the title of this video, today's going to be a deck tech on Sai, Master Thopterist. Sai is really fun if you like mono blue decks or just artifact decks in general. Sai's ability states that whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter token with flying. He has the ability to pay 1 and a blue in order to sacrifice 2 artifacts in order to draw a card. The main idea of the deck is to create a ton of Thopters and use those Thopters to do tons of crazy stuff. You know, tapping them, attacking with them is really the main way we win the game, although we have a combo that can help us win the game besides that. And it's just a whole lot of fun, so let's get straight into it. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is Mana Ramp. Now, by far the best card for Mana Ramp, and basically the best card in the entire deck, is Clock Omens. This is a 4-mana artifact that states you can tap unto tapped artifacts you control to untap target artifact. This means that if we have Sai on the battlefield, or another token generator, whenever we cast an artifact spell, we can tap that artifact in the Thopter made in order to untap a mana rock using Clock Omens' ability. This means that the mana cost of all our artifacts is reduced by a ton, based on how big our mana rock is, of course. Like, say you have a Thran Dynamo, every 2 CMC artifact you cast now generates 1 colorless mana, which is insane. Because it means we can cast a ton of artifacts and create tons of Thopters, and then next turn we'll have all those to tap again with Clock Omens, meaning that we get far ahead very quickly. And it's just sort of a snowball effect, and I think that's kind of what Sai likes to do best, and so Clock Omens does that really well. It can also just untap other artifacts we have that have activated abilities like Trading Post. Besides Clock Omens and the artifacts we're going to want to be able to untap with it, we have a couple other cards that help us mana ramp. The best of these is probably Blink Mothern. Blink Mothern states at the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, that player creates colorless mana equal to the number of artifacts they control. This may help our opponents a little bit, but it really helps us because we have a lot of Thopters and other artifacts in general. So we're going to be creating a ton of colorless mana. And this happens each pre-combat main phase, so each turn we'll get more and more mana. And the fact that this helps each player means that it's also going to be sort of a group hug card, and people won't want to remove it. It sort of has its own protection. These next pair are super interesting, and I like them, and they go really well together. So the first is Chief Engineer, which states all artifact spells we control have Convoke, which means that we can tap creatures in order to help cast the spell in place of mana. Here's our Thopters can be used to tap in order to cast artifacts, which is a huge percentage of our deck. While this card isn't super good because it only lets our creatures, which means only the token Thopters, help cast other spells, while Blink Mothern and Clock Omens use our artifacts to do that, this card still has a lot of power for a 2-mana creature. The pair with this card is Inspiring Statuary, which states our non-artifact spells have Improvise, which means that we can tap our Thopters and other artifacts in order to help cast non-artifact spells. Now this card's a little worse, I'd say, because a high percentage of our deck is artifacts, and we won't get to cast as many spells that we want to, but the fact that it is an artifact and we can use our artifacts to cast non-artifact spells means that it's an auto-include. Now another part of our mana ramp could be cards that say your artifacts cost 1 less. This is, in my opinion, good cards. You know, there's a lot of them. My favorite is Ethereum Sculptor because it's the cheapest. And just making artifacts cost 1 less means the more artifacts you cast, the more mana this card or cards has produced. The last sort of mana ramp section we have would be our mana doublers. High Tide's a really good example of this. It's just very cheap and doubles our blue mana, or the amount of mana our islands can produce that turn, which means that we get a huge turn, which is, you know, sort of snowballs like I said before. But besides that, we actually have 2 artifacts that can do this. The first is Extra Planar Lens. This card states that we imprint a land when it enters play, and lands of the same type as the imprinted one they can produce double mana. The other artifact card we have is Cage Sun. Cage Sun says choose a color. Creatures that chosen color get +1/+1, so we can choose colorless and get the same effect as any of our Anthem cards. Or we can choose blue and our blue mana gets doubled. So the next section is card draw. Now besides your classic Thoughtcast and Fact or Fiction, we have a couple of really interesting and really cool, in my opinion, card draw cards that you can use tokens. The first one I like to point out is Shimmer Dragon. This is very similar to Clock of Omens because it states that we can tap 2 untapped artifacts we control to draw a card instead of untap another artifact. So now every artifact card we cast draws us a card. Comboed with another card that makes a lot of mana. Now it's not going to be any of our cards that make us tap for mana, so Inspiring Statuary and Clock of Omens don't really work that well. Blinkmoth Urn doesn't actually require us to tap any artifacts in order to create mana, so Shimmer Dragon and Blinkmoth Urn combo really well. I mean, it's just a good card. We can draw a ton of cards at someone's end step and go, you know, on our turn we'll have all those cards. Skull Clamp. I didn't really like this card until I built this deck, and I was like, oh geez, this card is insane. 1 mana to sacrifice a Thopter to draw 2. This card, since it's 1 mana, if we have Sai out, we can pay 2 mana to draw 2 immediately. And then every time we pay 1 mana into its equipped cost, we draw 2 more, as long as we have Thopters, which is insanely good. 1 mana to draw 2 multiple times is so broken, especially in a Sai deck where, you know, we're going to have tons of mana, as I've talked about before, and this card just helps us go off. And it works well with Clock Omens too, because we can tap the artifacts to untap our Mana Rock, tap the Mana Rock, and then we can equip Skull Clamp to an already tapped Thopter, so it combos well. The next trio is very interesting, and I actually think it's this deck is going to make one of the best uses of this trio. It's the Coastal Piracy / Bind of Thassa. And no, those are only 2. The third card is actually Chimera Discovery, but that's better and works a little bit differently, so we're going to separate that out. Bind of Thassa and Coastal Piracy both need our creatures to connect to face, and we get to draw cards for each one. So this kind of reminds me of the Spy Master of Tress, you know. But our Thopters, we're going to have a ton of them, and this deck just makes so good use of them. The problem kind of with our mana is that a lot of our mana requires us to tap our Thopters, and our Thopters have to tap to attack, so we kind of don't always get both, you know. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Unless you have Blinkmoth Urn in this case, then you can have both. But the problem with Blinkmoth Urn even is it says pre-combat main phase. So you get your mana before combat, before you get to draw. So, besides Shimmer Dragon and Skull Clamp, you can't really have your cake and eat it too, but you kind of can too. The third one is Chimera Discovery, which is a lot better than the other 2. Chimera Discovery states that whenever... So first, you have to choose a creature type. We're obviously choosing Thopters, or Mirrors if you have Mirrored and Besieged. And whenever the creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield, whenever you create a Thopter with Sai, you get to draw a card. Insane! And then whenever they attack, they don't even have to do combat damage to an opponent. They just have to attack, which is so good because, you know, if they block your Thopters, you're still going to get to draw the cards. It's insane. And the other thing about it is it combos with any of our artifact making cards that require us to tap Thopters. Skull Clamp does this, but this card does it better because when they enter the battlefield, we get to draw a card. So insane, and just like so much value over the game because we get to draw twice. So the final card I want to talk about for card draw is Mystic Forge. Now this card is not really a card draw card. It just allows us to play the top card if it's a colorless card. So if it's a Karn Planeswalker or an artifact, we can cast it. This is more for a Storm artifact deck like Joyrun, which I'll be doing a deck tech for in the future. But the reason we have this card is because it's part of a combo. The combo is Sensei's Divining Top, this card, and any cost reducer. So for example, Ethereum Sculptor. This combo, basically what you do is you put the Sensei's Divining Top on top of your library. Then, because of the cost reducer, it costs 1 mana, and you can play it using Mystic Forge for free because it costs 0. So you play it, and then you draw a card, put it on top of your library. So you draw out your entire library, and you get infinite Thopters. So, assuming you have 4 mana, or yeah, you just need 4 mana in order to cast Clock of Omens. Now you've casted Sensei's Divining Top equal to the amount of cards in your library. You've casted it that many times, so you have that many Thopters, and so Clock of Omens can make a ton of mana, basically infinite. One of the artifacts you're going to need to cast is going to be Throne of the God Pharaoh, because by then you're going to have so many tapped Thopters. And then Throne of the God Pharaoh at your end step is going to deal damage to each opponent equal to the number of tapped Thopters you control. You have over 40, so unless someone's gained up to, you know, above 100 life, you're going to win the game. That combo is kind of a way to get around Fort decks, because you have Throne of the God Pharaoh. Fun combo for sure, because it uses a lot of random cards that you're already wanting in the deck. Alright guys, so I'm going to skip removal here. I would usually do removal with card draw mana ramp, but I'll tell you why in a minute why I skipped it. So next we're going to do token generators. So first we have our Commander Sai. I mean, obviously he's just so good at generating tokens, and he's our commander, so the whole deck is built around those tokens, and so we have him. But we have two other cards that do the same thing as Sai. They're both enchantments, and they're called Mirrored and Besieged and Efficient Construction. So Efficient Construction does what Sai does, except it's 4 mana, it's an enchantment, and it only has that one ability that states whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a Thopter. Now Mirrored and Besieged is only 3 mana, but it doesn't actually create a flying creature, which is kind of worse because we kind of want flying for all the coastal piracy effects we have. Mirrored and Besieged is a little worse, but its second ability, when you don't choose Mirrored but you choose Phyrexian, says you can just kill an opponent if you have 15 more artifact cards in your graveyard. This isn't our main strategy to win the game for sure, but it's sort of a fun backup. And the next token generator I'm going to talk about is called Sharding Sphinx, and it's a 6 mana 4/4 flyer that states whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, you create that many 1/1 flying blue Thopters. They're blue this time, not colorless. So you gotta note that because certain cards in this deck care about the color. This card's insane because if we get to attack with all our Thopters, they double up, and ooh, it's insane. And they're not tapped when we've dealt combat damage. They tap, they attack, they double, and then they're untapped. So all our tapping effects, our Shimmer Dragon and our Clock of Omens can still be activated with those other Thopters. And we still get the combat damage, we still get the coastal piracy effect. So this is kind of like a bridge. If we want to use like a coastal piracy effect and we still want to be able to tap them, like coastal piracy and Shimmer Dragon with this card can draw us a card for each one that deals combat damage, and then 1 card for every 2 Thopters after combat. That's a lot of cards. And this card just makes all other cards better. And by itself, it can attack and create a Thopter, and then our Thopters, each time they attack, and double up. Meaning that it's a token generator all by itself. Yeah, with that, let's keep going. And so next is Recursion. The best card for Recursion in the deck is going to be Emery, Lurker of the Luck. She's 2 and a blue, although she's only technically a blue if you control 2 artifacts. She enters battlefield, you mill the top 4, and you can just cast an artifact card from your graveyard. You can just choose an artifact card in your graveyard and cast the turn you tap Emery. She allows you to cast an artifact card from your graveyard each turn. She's just a good recursion card. I mean, she gets back your Winding Clock, your Throne of the God Pharaoh in case you lose them. These next 2 cards are Mirror Retriever and Scrap Trawler. Scrap Trawler and Mirror Retriever are both really good. They're artifact creatures. Mirror Retriever says when it dies, you may return target artifact card from graveyard to your hand. And Scrap Trawler says whenever an artifact you control goes to the graveyard, you can choose an artifact card with less CMC and bring that back. So anytime you sacrifice an artifact, this card allows you to bring one back of less cost. And this actually goes infinite with 2 other cards. And one of them was the card I just mentioned, Mirror Retriever, but the other one is Clarkline Ironworks. Now, I actually didn't mention Clarkline Ironworks before because I felt like it was a kind of iffy card for mana ramp. It requires you to sacrifice your Thopters. So while it allows you to cast a ton of artifacts in 1 turn, you have to sacrifice the artifact, or the Thopters, and even maybe your other artifacts. And that, unless you have a recursion card, can be debilitating because Sai really likes tons of artifacts. You have Clock of Omens and Blink Moth Urn that, you know, want you to have a ton of artifacts and so you can snowball. This card, Clarkland Ironworks, doesn't let you snowball because it makes you sacrifice them. But it is an infinite combo, and the way it works is you sacrifice the token Thopter, or whatever token you made when you casted the artifact, and Mirror Retriever. It goes to the graveyard, and you get the trigger. You use Scrap Trawler, you sacrifice it in the Thopter. You made 8 mana now, but you spent 3 of it on the Scrap Trawler, so you have 5 mana. You get back the Mirror Retriever, you cast the Mirror Retriever, and you kind of see a pattern here where as long as you have a token generator like your commander, you go infinite. See, if you have a Thopter, each time you're casting an artifact, you're making 4 mana per artifact as long as you're sacrificing both. In total, Scrap Trawler and Mirror Retriever only cost 5 mana, so you're making 3 mana. That mana goes to your mana pool, and you can do that infinitely, making infinite mana. And you can recast Scrap Trawler and Mirror Retriever infinite times and keep the Thopters around because you don't need them anymore. The Thopters can win you the game. So this is just a really interesting combo. It's not my favorite though, because I just don't like Clarkland Ironworks. I mean, it seems like a good card, except it requires you to sacrifice your Thopters, and that just kind of kills the rest of the cards in your deck, kills your main game plan, because the whole idea is you keep your Thopters around so they start to build up and you can win the game that way. And yeah, I like the combo. I just don't think that it's very good. At least Clarkland Ironworks. I run the other 2 cards though. Alright, so the next category we got is tutors. There are some pretty, blue has tons of tutors. They can tutor for instances, sorceries, and artifacts all pretty well. You can run any tutors you want, really. You can run Merchant Scroll, Mystical Tutor, Muddle the Mixture. All those are great because they can go grab your artifact tutors. I know that sounds redundant, but it's really good. And your artifact tutors are Fabricate, which is just 3 mana, go grab any artifact. You also have Inventor's Fair, which is a land. Word of Invention is by far the best because it's instant speed, and it, even the improvise we don't care about. It's just instant speed. At the end of someone's turn, you could be like, oh, I'll go grab this game-winning artifact. Or you can go during combat be like, oh, you don't block at all? I'm going to go cast this spell, go grab Coat of Arms, and you're dead. And Merchant Scroll can go tutor for this because it's instant speed. Besides Word of Invention, you kind of have a very similar effect in Reshape, except you have to sacrifice another effect. Not a big deal. We have tons of Thopters. Reshape is just strictly worse because it's not instant speed. The only other tutors I can think of you really wanting to run is the T-Mage series. So you have Trophy Mage, Trinket Mage, Treasure Mage, Tribute Mage. Trophy Mage goes grabs a 3 CMC, Tribute goes grabs a 2, Trinket gets you 1, and Treasure gets you 6. 3 mana you can go grab extra Planar Lens, and you usually really want that card. 1 mana you can grab Skull Clamp. Trophy Mage actually doesn't have a lot. You can go grab Cage Sun. But it's probably the weakest of all of them. With Tribute Mage, you can go grab Steel Overseer, which leads us right into the next category of Anthem effects. Now, you have a lot of them. You have Adaptive Automation, which gives all your Thopters +1/+1. You have Metallic Mimic, which gives them +1/+1 counters. And you have a couple others even. I won't mention them all, but the best is Steel Overseer, because you can give them a +1/+1 counter. Untap with Clock Omens. As many times as you want, and your Thopters are like 7/7s. Or you can just do it each end step. This card just has the most utility, and it's only 2 mana. The rest are like 3 mana to just give all your Thopters +1/+1. But this is a permanent, even if it gets killed, your Thopters still have the +1/+1 counters, and you can do it multiple times. By far, the best Anthem effect is Coat of Arms. Gives each of your Thopters +1/+1 equal to the number of Thopters. So the more Thopters you have, the more pumps each Thopter gets. This card is exponentially good. Say you have 7 Thopters. Each one is now an 8/8, so that's 8 times 7. If you have 10 Thopters, each one is an 11/11, and that's 11/11 times 10. The effect isn't permanent, which is why I like to use Word of Invention to sneak it into play, or you can just play it right before combat and attack. I've talked about Throw of the God Pharaoh. This isn't a Anthem effect. This is a really different card from the rest. And it says you deal damage equal to the number of tapped creatures you control at each end step. You have all these cards, and the best two are Clock of Omens and Shimmer Dragon, that can tap your Thopters even if they can't attack. Shimmer Dragon lets you tap all of them, draw cards, and then this card's like, oh, each opponent takes damage equal to the number of tapped Thopters you control. So, given that each Thopter's only 1/1, now doing 3 damage per tapped one means that you actually kind of give each Thopter +2/+2, and you don't even have to attack, you can just tap them. You're already tapping them. This card is by far the best way to deal damage in this deck. It's the best way to win the game. Alright guys, so before I move on to the next category, I'd like to talk about a very fun combo. It reminds me of Seaborn Muse and Vidalcan Orrery a lot. The combo is Unwinding Clock and Shimmermere. You got the Shimmermere, which lets you cast only artifact spells as though they had flash, and Unwinding Clock that only lets you untap artifact cards. Lets you have a little bit of a mini turn. Not really Vidalcan Orrery, Seaborn Muse turn powerful, but definitely for mono blue, insane. And especially because all of our mana ramps are artifacts, and all the cards we want to be casting are artifacts. I mean, Shimmermere has the benefit of costing 1 less, but mostly being able to be cast whenever. That's just a combo that I thought I'd add into the deck. It's sweet. It's cool when you get it out. So I'd like to talk about a card really quick. It's 2-mana Spirit Dragon. This card is insane, and it just, lets you gain a ton of life. 1 life for every colorless creature you control. Just a reminder, Shrouding Sphinx makes colored creatures, so this doesn't really work with that card. A card like this is a super easy auto-include, and it just gains you a ton of life. Now the final category I'd like to talk about is removal. I haven't mentioned this category yet because I don't have any removal I want to talk about. Besides Duplicate, you don't really have any good artifact removal cards. Besides that, play your Pongifies, your Evacuations, and you're good to go. And check out the deck list if you want to see more of those type cards. Now, one removal card that's pseudo removal is Opposition. Basically, this card says you can tap your Thopters, creatures, but Thopters are creatures. Tap your creatures to tap your opponent's artifacts, lands, and creatures. Everything that produces mana can now be tapped down on your opponent's turn using your Thopters. And if you have a card like Unwinding Clock, you can do it each turn, shutting down each of your opponent's turns. And I mean, you can also just tap down creatures during combat with activated abilities. It shuts down a lot of decks. If you're looking for removal, that is the way to go. Hope you guys are having a good day, and see you guys next time. Bye.